Okay, um, I hope you have been trying the past couple of days. So, I'm gonna be releasing a few videos. The first one, right, is gonna be the most basic one. Some of you, after watching this, you might think that, hey, why don't you teach us this one first? Because it's so much easier to understand. There's a reason for that, which I will get to probably by the last video, and I hope you understand then. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to draw what I've asked you to draw, but starting from a very simple shape. So that is a regular cuboid first. Okay, so I'm just gonna do um, a regular cuboid, but I will show you all sides of it. What do I mean by that? Okay, pardon me. So what I mean is that, I told you to draw the dotted lines to show what is behind, right? Okay, I'm choosing this very light color because there's a reason for this as well. Okay, pardon me, it's a bit slanted and all that. Okay, so I've told you specifically to angle it because I want you to draw it from what you will see from this angle, from this angle, and from this angle, and from this angle. Why is that? Okay, so I think a couple of you actually have rightfully mentioned this is what we call an orthographic projection. Orthographic projection. Okay, so what this means is that if you're standing here and you're looking straight at this thing from this particular angle, what do you actually see? Okay, so the shape here is obviously much simpler than the one that I've asked you to do. Okay, so what you need to take note of is that you need to look at the cuboid as not just a volume, as a block, as a brick, but rather a set of points. Okay, what do I mean by that? So you have this point here, this point, this point, and this point. So these 4 points actually mark the base of this shape here. Okay, it's the base. So I'm going to change the different colors so now you can see. So these 4 points here are 4 different corners of the cuboid. Okay, and to make it even clearer, I'm going to do dotted line so that you can see that this is the base of the cuboid. Okay, so most of you should be able to look at the eraser that I've given you and realize this like without much thought. So what do we do with this information? We actually are supposed to project it downwards. Okay, project it downwards like so. And we will use this information to establish the extent of our base. Okay, so this is the bottom layer of the base. Okay, so I'm also going to annotate, I'm going to call this bottom. Okay, now why did I draw the 4th point if I'm not going to use it? Okay, that's because it will still show here, but it will remain dotted because I'm not supposed to see it in the front. Okay, I hope you understand that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what do we do for the top side of the cuboid. Okay, so we do the same thing. We identify the 4 different corners of the cuboid like so. Okay, and I'm going to draw solid lines for all of this because I should be able to see, okay, this in this view regardless, right? So you notice that the lines that I have not changed colors, okay, the so-called yellow lines, the yellow ochre lines, those lines indicate the height of the object. So you notice that these lines, the blue lines, line up with the red ones because it's straight up, it's vertically up. So there's no change in height. The eraser is of the same height. I think I mentioned this in class as well. So if I were to join all these up together, you will have noticed that this height here, which I'm going to call H, is the same height here. Okay, notice how I've been using only estimation. I have not been using any ruler whatsoever, and furthermore I'm on the iPad. So now that I have this, I'm just going to line it all up here, and you should be able to see that this is the final shape that I should be seeing. So just to be clear, I'm going to use layers to help me to do this. I have this face here, this single face here, which corresponds to this much of the shorter side of the left side of the cuboid that I should be seeing. Okay, so here comes the tricky part, which is how do you see, or how do you draw the next part, which is to the left or to the right of this shape here. So actually, right, if you think about it, you should not be having too much of a trouble, because right, using the 4 points, I should be able to project it, okay, just the same way as how I've seen it from the front. Now from the right hand side, if I were to project it to the right, you see the points that I've picked out to draw this? I've actually only picked out these 3 points, right, from the right hand side. I'm ignoring the 4th one on the left because these 3 points form the base. I'm going to draw the same 3 dots here. Okay, so if I were to start to number them, right, you notice that, let's say I call this 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. I'm actually only seeing points 1, 2, and 3 for the one from the front, but I see points 2, 3, and 4, okay, from the left, from the right, right? So, with that information, you can actually now find the location of where 1 is. 1 is actually going to be somewhere right about here, okay? So I'm not going to draw it in because I'm not supposed to see it. But using the same method, okay, I can now actually find the top, okay? And you see, what is interesting about this is that I'm not supposed to draw any dotted lines here. What happens when I draw dotted lines downwards, okay? I'm going to show you what happens. So, if I were to draw a dotted line downwards, where does it actually lead me to? Nowhere, because how can this be the height of the eraser when my red line is indicating the bottom? This is where probably a lot of the confusion comes in. What you probably need to realize is that actually this point here, the blue dot, relates to the red dot vertically on top of each other, right? Because the height actually never changes. So if I were to use that conclusion, I should be able to tell myself that actually I can relate the heights this way. Okay, so this is the first thing that you probably need to understand first, which is the height actually never changes. So in doing so, before that, I should probably get rid of this to avoid any confusion. Okay, you're not supposed to do this because it actually doesn't show up that way. But you can actually use the information from your first drawing to help you to establish the height of this. Okay, so that's the first thing. So how do I know that? This h here is the same h, right? The height never changes. But the amount that I see on the sides actually changed because this actually lines up to 3 and this actually lines up to 4. So similarly, I'm just going to use numbers to help me to indicate this so that you don't get confused here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So point number 1 is being obscured in all of this. Okay, but for the first drawing, 1, 2, 3 remains, right? So using that understanding, right, you should know that actually everything is just an indication of where it is projected vertically. Okay, I'm going to draw the rest of it. So hang tight for a while. Okay, and you should be able to see that the sides bounded by the 3 points 3 and 4 become smaller in this view. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything to that so that you don't get confused. Now I'm just going to draw in the other 2 faces. Hopefully you can also see how we derive it. Okay, so I'm just going to continue. And same thing, I'm drawing the dotted lines from the red dots first because that is from the bottom. From the red dots, not from the blue dots, because the red dots are at the bottom. So this tells me the extent of the edge of the eraser that I should be seeing. And in this view, I should be seeing from points 1 on the right, 4, and 3. Right, correct? Okay, and because this is kind of somewhat aligned to the same orientation that we were facing, so the height also never really changes. Okay, so this example here may not be the best to describe why we draw the height this way. I will show you that in the next example. So in this example, just bear with me. I'm just going to show you how we derive each orthogonal projection for each of the sides first. Okay, And then I'll move on to something that looks a little bit closer to what I've asked you to do. Okay, so let me just finish this up first. So you have 3, 4, 1. Okay, and then we also have the height, which is this, like that. And then we also can relate once again to the height of the eraser, because this height actually never changes. Okay, so you can see, okay, something like this. You don't have to follow me exactly, I'm just showing you how it's done. And also maybe, actually you can't, because this shape is not quite the same one as the one I've asked you to do. So at this point, don't be too hung up on the accuracy, because there's a reason why I ask you not to use ruler. Not because I want you to be perfect, okay, because I'm asking you to just use logic and use your eyes, okay, to figure out where everything goes. So the whole point here is not for you to be super accurate, okay, but you kind of need to construct this image by putting the points together like so. If you are able to do that, then you should be able to tell me that this is how each of these faces should look like. Okay, so we're almost there. Let me just finish this up really quickly so you can understand it in totality. So because this is a cuboid and we are not doing any slanted edges or vertical cuts or anything like that, everything is lining up to each other. So I hope this helps, okay? And for, I think, some of you probably still confused, and that's okay. Hopefully in the next example, I'll be doing 2 more examples. The next one will have some angular cuts and edges, so hopefully you can see why things line up a certain way. So this is what happens when it's flat. Okay, so check out the next one.